Okay, so I am going to try a little something here. This is my very first tutorial video. So what we're going to try here is some inking in Paint Tool Sai. As you can see, I already have a base for inking, and it's just some regular comic paneling, nothing very impressive here. So for starters, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take out the draft and I'm gonna lower the opacity of my sketch here that I'm gonna be inking. So put it at about halfway, a little lower. So I can still see the outline, but it's very low, so I can see the full effect of what the inking is going to do. So in Paint Tool Sai, what I have found is that you select your color at all black, of course. You can ink in different ways. You can do it on a normal layer and do with the regular pen, which is going to give you a soft line, a little bit like such. But this can be good if you want to have like a gray outline. So here, I'll leave the outline here anyways. But I prefer to start a new vector layer because you get all kinds of new tools. So you have the curve, which is very useful when you want to make full circles, or in this case I'm going to use it to make the outline of some of the shades in the back. So just click on your starting point, do your outline, and make sure to make little points where you want it to curve, as such. So if you have an unsteady hand and you want to make a circle, it's actually a really good tool to use. And there you go, you've got a part of the outline here. So that's a very useful tool for that. And you also have the line tool, which works in a very similar way. Just make a starting point, and it makes a very decent straight line, and it's a lot easier than struggling with the pen. Especially if you have a big panel like this one, straight lines are a pain to do. And at the end you just double touch, and there you go, your line is done. Do the same for another bar, and there you go. So for the next, I'm going to do the rest of the bars in fast track afterwards. We're going to concentrate on the main character in here. It's not actually someone with a name or anything, it's just a bit of a stand-in character to prove a point here in the prologue. So you have the pen that has changed, and what it really does is it gives an effect similar to a normal pen. Here, I'm just going to make a line in a white spot to show. Instead of being a block line with pen pressure using a tablet, see, it just ends in a fine point. So it's very good to put emphasis, because if you do the outline of a manga character, or any comic character really, and everything is just a block line of the same thickness everywhere, you lose a lot of body in a drawing. You don't have as much dimension. Sorry, my cat decided to say hello. So here we're going to start, because if you have everything, like I'm going to press the whole way. So that's what you get for hair if you press the whole time. So it's not bad, but you lose a lot of the dimensions you want. So I'm going to erase it, do it properly. Make your starting point at the base thick hair, whoops, and there you go, finer point. There are some places where you even want the lines to kind of vanish. So my line here might actually be a little thick. Use the eraser, and there you go. Just do a couple of lines here. I prefer to do thicker at the start and then end in smaller, but if you want, you can also do very thin at first, and as you go press it. Works as well. This one's not placed very well, so undo. Little tip, always go back, check what it looks like, and go back in. There's very different styles you can make using line thickness, and it can make entirely different drawings with it. The type I prefer to use is I use thicker lines on the outline, and then I go in the place at the bottom here you can choose your pen thickness, and I'm going to go lower for details, for example like little muscle lines, collarbone. As you can see, those are smaller, but I haven't changed my pen thickness. You just press a little less. So the outside I'll press a lot more, and it'll just give the drawing a little bit more body, and then inside I press some less, and there you go. Some detailing, and so that's pretty much the base of inking. So I'm gonna continue on this drawing that I'm gonna put in fast pace, and if I see any point where I need to make some comments, I will add to it. Okay, so as you can see, I've done most of the line art for this guy. Forgotten here. I left myself a note here, gradient, because little notes where you have to put shade where you can avoid details are not bad. So here I'm just going to use some toning for the bottom part. As you can see, the outline, I still played with thickness, but it's still missing a little bit of that oomph that you want for your character. So it has a lot less detail, but what I do is I create another vector layer. Always keep my pen rather thin for that, and that's where I do all of my shading and fine detailing. For example, your fingers, if I take off my sketch thing, the fingers look kind of funky here because you can't see where the joints are or anything. Oops. So here I'm going to add some bit of shading where the knuckles are to go down. Just use some fine hatching lines, and same here. You want to see this guy has a little build, but I'm also going to add some other lines, because if you want to have either a dirty or worn look on someone, you put extra lines. So this guy's in jail, so clearly he's not exactly all super clean cut. So add some extra lines for depth and muscles. Same thing, I'm gonna thicken some line here. Joints, elbows, other places of the kinds make for a good spot for cross hatching. And thickening lines, because it adds a little bit of an effect. Pardon me. Collarbone as well. Be careful with the collarbone, because it's going to depend on the build of your character. You don't want too much of a collarbone if your character is very young, because it's not very defined. But if your character is either very skinny, collarbone tends to stick out, and it also does on a built character. But you gotta be careful, because it doesn't exactly stick out in the same type of way. So here we're gonna put a little bit of shading here. So you can do some people do their folds into their clothing in very thick lines. I prefer to do a lot of it in hatching. So I have my main folds here, but then if I want to add some to it, such as here, I want to deepen that fold, just add a little bit of shading. Same with here, I want to add a little something here to give the impression that there is 3 dimensions to it. See, if I put some lines here, you get the impression that there's a bump over here. So add some shadow to show there's a tear. Distance between the cloth and the skin. Same here. Now here's a part where I'm going to thicken the line because the shadow is deep. You can just use black instead of cross-hatching. There we go. Thing under the sleeve. A little bit under the sleeves here too. And so there already it gained some dimension. Add a little bit of extra lines here. So those fine details sometimes are what can create an entire drawing. Be mindful also of your light source. Pardon me. I want something that looks like light is more coming from above, so my lower lines are going to be thicker and darker, especially when it comes to hair. So here, less light, more detail, and up top, I am probably going to use the eraser to make this one a little. Make a thinner line because the light is kind of be coming from above, and you can use line thickness to also give an impression of shadow, so that makes it kind of neat. Okay, a little bit too much here. There we go. Alright, so that pretty much concludes our very first short tutorial on little tips and tricks into doing some basic inking.